All right, well, welcome to the regular Friday meeting of the Tacoma Pierce County Coalition to End Homelessness. I see we're up to about 35 folks in the room. So let's go ahead and get started. We have a pretty packed agenda, especially here in the first hour. So I will turn it over to Cece Mendoza from Metropolitan Development Council, my coworker, to do our introductions and welcome this morning.
Good morning, everybody. Cece Mendoza at MDC. Welcome. Glad you're all here. I'm grateful for all of you. I wanted to ask if we have any new people here today that haven't attended before. Would you please introduce yourselves to us? Don't be shy.
Hey there, my name is Tim Harris. I started the Real Change newspaper in Seattle some 25 years ago, and thank you. I'm interested in starting a new project, which would be a statewide paper, starting in the Olympia-Tacoma area as the nucleus. So I'm here beginning to learn the landscape of what's going on over there, and you'll be seeing more of me in coming months.
Welcome, Tim. We're excited to have you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. All right, before I hand it over, I did want to share something. I know that a lot of us get tired. I get tired. We have a lot of challenges. So it's really important for me, and I think for us, to stay focused. And one thing that always helps me is when I do my gratitude list every night before I go to sleep. So I wanted to share something that Dalai Lama wrote. When you practice gratefulness, there is a sense of respect toward others. Thank you. All right, handing it over.
Thank you, Cece. And very briefly, I'm just going to show the coalition meeting norms here. Hopefully that's showing up for folks. These are the meeting norms that we created earlier this year, and I wanted to call attention to a couple of things. It starts with our norms that we've created for holding meetings here on Zoom, which of course are different than when we were in person. So we ask that folks mute themselves when they're not talking. Use the raise hand feature if you have something to say. You can also just have your camera on and wave, and I will try to catch that as I'm running the meeting as well. And then if you're in a place where you need to be moving around a lot or you need to take another phone call, please turn your camera off so that it doesn't become a distraction. And I see a chat note from Jenny. I will let her share in a moment. Thank you, Jenny. And our community norms, you can read here. We start with that we approach this work leading with a racial equity lens. Please be aware of the power dynamics in the room. Challenge concepts and not people. Remember to listen to learn. We ask that one person speaks at a time. Speak from your own experience. Make space and take space, so be willing to step in and step back out. Assume the best intentions and take responsibility for any impact. And one of our biggest challenges, please be aware of the time and agenda. So thank you for letting me share that. And Jenny, we can go to you before we move on to our first item.
Thanks, Rob. I just wanted to let everyone in this group know we lost one of our employees at Inside Passages this week. He was very well connected to our community and had worked in the community for a lot of years. Jeffrey Latham. He passed away Monday evening. He was struggling with a number of health conditions. He passed away peacefully in his sleep, and we were made aware of his passing Monday morning by his daughter. So I just wanted to let everyone in the group know. As I mentioned, he'd worked in the community for a lot of years, and he was very passionate about his work. So his passing was very unexpected. So it hit our team pretty hard. But because I know there's a lot of people in this group who probably connected with him or worked with him at one point or another, I did want to share that with the group.
Thank you, Jenny, and sorry for your loss and the community's loss.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think I will shift now to the first item in our agenda. And Garrett, would you like to do this introduction? Not that I'm putting you on the spot.
Okay, I gotta figure out where we are. Sorry.
No, we're at the point of introducing Mr. Hunthausen.
Excellent. All of you probably know Denny Hunthausen, who has been leading the Southwest region of Catholic Community Services for what? Has it been 1 year? 2 years, Denny? Maybe it's been a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's I think we're all a little bit sad that it's Denny's deciding to retire. Can't be that long that you've been there. And we're really excited just to kind of have a little bit of reflection from you on maybe what you've seen change. And I don't even want to know what the number is of years that you've been working as all sorts of things, right? Denny has a degree in social work and did the work and administrates it. And anyway, Denny, thanks so much for sharing some time with us.
Thanks, Garrett. Thanks, Rob. Yeah, so how much time do we have in this piece? I know you got a big agenda.
Yeah, so we set aside like about 10 minutes or so
Okay.
for you to share your words of wisdom.
Great. Well, words of wisdom, I don't know. And while I do know quite a few of you, it's really good to be with you this morning. Many people on the call here I don't. And some of that is, I almost introduced myself as new during that first piece, thinking that I was very active in earlier renditions of the Homeless Coalition, but in recent years, I haven't been really involved directly. And so some of you may not know who I am, but I've been at CCS for a long time. And just to give you a little bit of context, because I think it relates to maybe some similar journeys, those of us that find ourselves in homelessness and housing, we often are active in many other arenas, but are drawn into this area for perhaps similar reasons. I started in 1983, actually, when I came to Tacoma, moved, and was active at St. Leo Parish, and raised my family in Tacoma, and now live in Fircrest and have for a long time. But I started out working really with refugees and immigrants, and I didn't have a degree in social work at the time, just liberal arts, and wanted to get involved and do something meaningful, and felt that I just didn't want to do the normal stuff because I knew I'd kind of get bored with that pretty quickly. And so started in that work. And while I've done over the years many different things at CCS, the two, with children and families and child care and child welfare, foster care, all of which has been meaningful. The two areas that probably stick with me the most are first the refugee and immigrant work I did in the early years, and then since the mid 90s, housing and homelessness. And I think there's a reason for that. And so over the years, then it was in 96, I really started working in community development and shelter and homelessness, and really taken by, I think inspired by the guidance of a lot of folks coming out of the community in the Hilltop and St. Leo's, and one of them is on the call here today, Maureen. She was every bit the activist then that she is now, and actually started one of the shelters that we ended up merging with that went through a couple of forms, and that's how these things can sometimes work. It just, over these many years, I was able to, with the incredible organization of Catholic Community Services and the staff there, we ended up developing shelter. We had nothing in housing and homelessness really. And in late 90s is when I became agency director, and developed shelters and housing in Bremerton, Olympia, and quite a lot in Tacoma and Pierce County as well. And then more recently, happy to say we've gotten a little bit going out there in Puyallup after a long conversation of many years, and hope more happens there. And we're also in contract to do a sizable hotel shelter down in Vancouver that will start up later this summer. So a lot that's, my region is really Southwest, we call it. We're Catholic Community Services of Western Washington. And so Pierce County and other areas, as I've sort of suggested. But, you know, I think this whole thing of being drawn to the margins of society or something that I know many of you that I know personally, we share in that way. And we maybe don't understand always why, but it just, we don't quite, it never leaves us. And we need to do something there, you know, never perfectly or completely or all the time, but something going on there. And I'm sure that's when I thought of coming on the call today, and those of you that I know, that's a common thread we bring to it. And Tim, while I maybe had met you, I think my daughter was on your board and may still be there. And that's great up in Seattle. So I'm glad to see she's continued some of the tradition.
Thanks so much. Very grateful for the Hunthausen family in general.
Great. And, you know, it's been, I think that's that common thread that brings us into this work. And gosh, it's so challenging, right? It's so rich. We get incredibly frustrated by it because of how hard it is and the persistence. But then the other part of that is that it does keep on giving because it is so complex and it relates to so many elements of our society, right? It's a fundamental right, and we know that in our gut and heart, but the way in which that happens in kind of a hard-edged capitalist society involves so many different elements of our lives together. And so that brings us in relationship to so much depth in our communities, in our organizations, in our society. And I think that is kind of the gift of that. And that's, I wanted to kind of remind you of that, I guess, or bring that to light a little bit in my reflection here this morning. But part of our belief statement and mission statement is that we believe every person deserves the right to safe, affordable housing. Very simple statement, but really powerful too. And I think that resonates with, I could safely say, everyone here on the call. Easy thing to say, really hard to do. But it has given me, you know, something to work on for most of my career in a meaningful way. And I'm thankful for that. I often, you know, look back on and think about, well, why we have such a challenge with homelessness in America. And it strikes me that I like to take the international view and think of other first world nations. And, you know, we pride ourselves so much in American exceptionalism and, you know, America can-do spirit and how we think of ourselves as leading the way in so many respects as a democracy and economically in other ways. And yet, look at the persistence and extent of our homelessness. I think to me, it's a great mirror for the attitude that's like, that blames the homeless or implies, you might say, that poor folks in our country are lesser than poor folks in other first world countries. Think about how ridiculous that is. Yeah, that somehow, you know, that we have more lazy and irresponsible people here, which is really the attitude that underlies much of the perspective that we get. And yet I know on its face, you know, it has to do with systems. It has to do with, you know, what systems we've set up as a society that create the reality we have. And so don't let that perspective get deep in you and think that that's really somehow has to do with shortcomings among our people or our society. It's not. It's about systems, and we are, of course, as you know, as better resourced than any country in the history of mankind, of humankind, to do whatever we put our minds to. So there is a way to address these issues, and we need to keep at it. I would just, really end, the general thought would be that it's important to support one another. Of course, the coalition is exactly the avenue to do that, and that's why you come together. I'm really excited. These coalitions and communities, of course, ebb and flow over time. And in recent years, boy, this really is a provider support group in so many ways, has been really strong in the quality of people that are active in it. I just, to give you my perspective, just say, add a girl, add a boy. It's good that you're all doing this, because it really does take that mutual support to keep going. And I think, again, we're often fighting against our culture in that we're so competitive, right? So then, and organizations can be too. I remember we're in a time when actually, and it's always sort of being stewards of what we have. You have that tension between, working for what we don't have and calling out for it and demanding it. But then there's also the work to be good stewards of what we have. And we have a lot more than we used to. I'll tell you what, those of you that have been at this work a while would certainly recognize that, in that we used to really, shelters, really people doing homeless work were pariahs. I mean, organizations there was no embracing at the city or county council. There was no sense of partnership, really. It was like, tolerate us. Now, of course, there's some of that now too, but we're really part of the solution conversation now, right? That didn't always feel that way. In fact, most of the time it didn't feel that way. I see Maureen nodding her head. It was not at all. And with law enforcement, we were clearly and publicly stated as part of the problem, not the solution. So, since the 80s, early 90s, things have really changed quite a bit. And we're in a much different place, where we're in a much more, I think, functional dialogue with the broader community about what can be done, what needs to be done. Certainly not perfect, but it is a much more positive place. And gosh, the evolution, it used to be very categorical in terms of emergency shelter and transitional housing. Since about 2010, with coordinated entry concepts coming in, rapid housing and diversion and all the other things that we've had, gee, we would have felt died and gone to heaven kind of thing had we had a flexible pool of resources to actually help people with rent assistance. That was a radical idea in the 90s or early 2000s. So we take that for granted now, but there's been great evolution in so many ways to the thinking and to the coalescing of resources to do any number of things. I know in so many respects it feels like we're going backwards when we look at the number of homeless folks. But again, that has to do with broader systemic societal issues. It really, really does. And I think we're doing as good a work as ever in most respects. And it takes us all. I'll just say that, look around the screens here and it's like, yeah, we need the bean counters, we need the data people, we need the social workers in direct service, we need the therapists, the folks who are in, totally connected. We need the activists. We need the deep thinkers. We need the folks of all types in on this. So support one another, encourage one another. When any of us does well, it reflects well on all of us. And my last thought, Teresa, I'm going to share that with the council if you get a chance on Tuesday, but there are many things you can think about in the span of your time and career that bring you joy. And the simple thing of having G Street paved has brought me more joy, as much joy as almost anything, because that felt like a backwater, wagon trail by the time it got paved. So I'm sure even the homeless folks that call that area their place are appreciating the fact that you can walk and ride your bike and whatever without getting jostled like crazy. But so there is hope and progress. I would just Anyway, thank you all for the opportunity to just share a little bit, and keep on keeping on. Wish you all the best.
Thanks, Denny. I think we'd all love to say a few words of tribute. I'm just going to give two tiny little stories about things that I love about you. The first one is, when I worked for you, I would sort of burst into your office with like a new great plan and a funding stream and everything like that. And you were always really polite to listen to me. And then you almost always reminded me, it's like, well, I tell you what, why don't we figure out how to keep going what we already are running? And then we can look at shiny new things. And so I think about that all the time, is how important it is to keep things going. And the other thing is, so Denny's, like you said, he's in charge of lots of stuff across Southwest Washington, but even walking like 2 blocks to a meeting at the county, he's going to stop and talk to every single person that he bumps into, experiencing homelessness, sleeping on the sidewalk. Like he somehow pulled off that magical thing where you work in an area for a really long time, and you get away from direct service, and yet his connection to the people that he was serving was continuous, right? Always about the individual person. Okay, those are 2 things that I love about you and want to embed in myself. So thanks so much, Denny.
Thank you, Garrett.
All right, we probably have a time for a couple more comments if folks want to raise their hands. Teresa?
So I have this wonderful memory of Denny. I have lots of wonderful memories of Denny because he's been really active in our community for a long time. But I think about when the building over here, Guadalupe Vista, was being built, Denny really had it in his heart to somehow honor Bix, who is a longtime leader in this community. And it wasn't going down so well with the powers that be. So he kind of did an end run, because Guadalupe House is the house that Bix started over here right across the street from me. And so Denny named it Guadalupe Vistas. And so that has connected that building with our community in a way that, and I've always appreciated his ability to do an end run when necessary. It's a real character trait that is much needed in this world. And we love you, Denny.
Thank you, Teresa.
Alan?
I've had the pleasure and honor of working with Denny since the time that he's been the director of CCS, and have been under his leadership during that time. And the one thing that that has just inspired me in my work, and what has kept me at CCS, is that through the evolution of our homeless services, and really, there's been a great evolution in CCS's homeless services. The development of Nativity House, the development of Family Housing Network during that time, is that when we evolve and when we pursue something new, it's not to chase funding. It's not to necessarily pursue a grant. It's always based on really thinking about what the community needs, and no matter if it's difficult or unpopular, that has always been the basis of the decisions of where we go as an agency.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you, Alan. And I see, I'm not sure if it's inadvertent or not, but Chongli White, I see a cross out mark. Did you have something you wanted to say? All right, I'll shift over to Paula Anderson.
I don't know how to put into words, Denny, how much you've helped us here in the Puyallup saga, as I put in the email or the text message. But you have personally given me hope every time we have a conversation when things are really rough going with the city and with what we've been doing at New Hope. One key thing that you said to me a long time ago was New Hope is where Nativity House was 15 years ago. So with the reaction from the community, it was what we were talking about at that time. And that single statement gave me hope, because I thought, well, if they can do it in Tacoma, and this is what they started with too, I don't feel so bad. I don't feel like this is a one-off that is never going to be successful. So just wanted to say thank you. And I am truly going to miss you in this arena. Take care.
Thanks, Paula. Great working with you. Keep it up.
And then Colin, why don't you close out remarks for this section?
Yes. Hello, Denny. I've had the pleasure of working with Denny in a lot of different, with a lot of different caps on, I guess I would say, over the years, in a lot of different regions or cities.
That's right.
And, you know, I mean, honestly, he's one of the few leaders that I've never heard anybody talk trash about. You know, I mean, that's pretty rare. And he, you know, to me, in working with, and I think we all know, like, good leaders are so hard to find, whether they're executive directors, whether they're directors, whatever that is. It's oftentimes, it's not simply the best person that rises. Oftentimes there's more going on in that game. And I would just say Denny is truly just the only way I could describe him is just a selfless leader. It's never been about him, which is so uncommon from the top person in an agency. So, and he's never been out of touch. You know, he's always been, as was described by Garrett, you know, he's always been willing to talk to you. When I was a lowly worker with the city of Tacoma and New, he came right up to me and had a big conversation, talked about my mom, you know, so just stuff that it's just, there's not a lot of Denny's that are going to come around. So I just applaud, and I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to work with you. And I know you're not going to just go away. Somehow you'll keep your nose in it somehow. So, but thank you for everything you've done over the years.
Thanks, Colin. And thank you for
very
all
much.
the comments. I appreciate all the wonderful comments in the chat section. It's very moving and touching, and thank you for your time.
Thank you for being willing to join us this morning, Denny. And congratulations. So let's shift to a short This Week on the Streets section. So this is, again, the weekly portion of the meeting where we ask people to share what they're seeing that has changed on the streets in doing outreach. Anything that people can share that they think is important for the good of the whole group. So, anybody have anything to share? Colin?
I can give a brief update. I know if Jeffrey's on the call, and then I see Paula could probably add also. So earlier in the week, Jeffrey and myself went out to the 509 camps with members of the hot team, outreach workers, to just try to touch base. There was word that there might be some potential safe parking candidates down there. So we went down there. I took some pictures. I shared them with some of the steering committee, and I will share them with the group if you guys would like, just to get an idea of the scale of what is going on underneath there. Is a massive encampment. Unfortunately, it's the same encampment that I visited a year ago, 2 years ago. It's the same group of people. Some of those people have been under there for more than a couple of years. So I'm under the impression, my plan was to try to get out there this morning to kind of live stream from there. I think it's getting cleared right now, but I'm not sure. but I don't know, most of the people, when I talked to them, there was not a lot of interest, very, very willing to chat, but a lot of RVs. So a lot of people that are trying to hold on to their RVs, massive amount of vehicles. I would guess it would be probably between a $50,000 and a $75,000 cleanup. And the reality is most of those people just said they're going to just go to another spot right nearby that's not on the person cleaning its property. So pretty frustrating and disappointing to see, you know, and the city kind of just shrugged, and because I think their hands are tied also. They're not exactly sure what to do with it, but it just emphasizes the point that we need safe spots for these individuals. Honestly, that is probably one of the most low impact areas. I know it's multiple jurisdictions, but boy, that site affects no one, you know. I mean, it does. Obviously, I don't want to speak for the tribe if they're on the tribal property, but I think there's ways that we could strategically look at setting up some smaller sites in that area that would work really well. There's good access in and outs. So that's 509. I don't know if anybody else has any comments about that. And then the other one is just what is Dan and Bill's RV park down in Ording. So I was out there earlier this week, was able to accompany Paula and a massive crew of outreach workers that went out there to respond and kind of connect to the individuals that are living at this RV park in Ording. I would say there's there's about 25 legit, it's a legit RV park for about 20 to 25 RVs. They have the infrastructure set up. You can set your black water in, everything like that. And then there's another 40 to 50 RVs that are not set up, and they are backed up to the river and pumping straight into the river, and things going on that you just would not believe. So it was pretty overwhelming to go to the site. Paula and her crew brought lunches, meals, kids running around all over the place. It literally looks like a campground. But it's also extremely concerning what's going on down there. Just to give you an idea, the landlord that's down there is getting around $600-700 per person. No leases are set up. So you start doing the math on that on a monthly level with 60, 70, maybe 80 RVs. They're making a lot of, it's probably some of the most predatory landlord behavior I've ever seen. So that's kind of my update on it. It was disappointing, but it was also, the kids were very happy. Though I will tell you what, there's a lot of drugs down there and there's no lighting. What that place looks like at night is honestly extremely concerning. I can't even imagine what that place looks like at night. Paula, I'm sure you have a lot more to say about that than I do, but that's kind of what I have for updates.
Yeah, I'll just briefly share, just it is overwhelming when you go in there, when you see the level of poverty, especially with the kids running around, and the only playground they have is a real faded plastic. I think it's a slide, like one of those Fisher-Price slides, and an empty kiddie pool. But we were able to bring food and just kind of make them feel welcome. The kids, I think, got the most out of it, other than some of the people that actually came forward and got services. I think Multicare did 2 SUD assessments. There is huge amount of physical need for some of the elderly people there, medical needs. People, you know, there's a man who's completely blind living in one of those. People with significant physical issues from diabetes and things of that nature, and literally they're just stuck there. So I do know that Jessica from the Greater Lakes was talking with somebody about the possibility of moving out. So I think the fact that people are going in there, and it's very tenuous there, because it is private property. And so what we're trying to do is not tick off the owners, but still be able to get in there and provide the services that we need to provide. But there are people there that want out. They just don't know how to do it. They don't know where the money is going to come from, where they're going to go. Because a lot of those motorhomes are pretty run down looking, so they would not qualify for some of the other kind of more established RV parks. So it's pretty bad down there, is what I would say.
Thanks, Paula. Davina, you've had your hand up for a while.
Yeah, I'm Davina over here at Tacoma Rescue Mission Outreach, and we went out to 509 this week, and typically that's an area that we don't have a lot of luck in. Also, everybody's when we went out, a lot of people knew where they were going to go. Could you turn your volume down? But we did have luck last week. We were able to do 2 couples intakes for the stability site, a single person for the stability site, which we got into the stability site. We're also working with a couple to try to connect them with the native tiny home. So we were very happy to have some success there. We've also have recently visited across from the old the old hospital on Pacific, 32nd, and we're able to, again, another area that typically isn't wanting much, but we got 2 intakes from there. And then also, this is good because this is showing a little bit more trust and willingness to maybe think about different options. We've also had a very good outcome on 38 between Pacific and Portland on the right there, and got 2 intakes from there. So things are finally moving along in areas that we're so reluctant for many things. So that's what we have to report.
Thank you. That's great to hear. And thank you for your work. All right. So if other folks have updates for the This Week in the Streets portion, please drop them in the chat. I know the chat's been super active. So as a reminder, we keep those chat logs and we can look back and use that information as we work with groups that are attending these calls to put together plans for how to address the issues that are brought up. So please use the chat. So we're going to shift gears and go over to James Pogue at Comprehensive Life Resources. James wanted to talk about the new resources that are available now at the Hype Center.
Hi, good morning. Is my mic working? Yes, good.
It is.
I've had a lot of fun technical issues as I'm trying to open a new program. The internet just got turned on yesterday, so it's been a fun time. But I wanted to just give a few seconds to update folks on the Beacon Center. For those that don't know, Comprehensive Life Resources in my department does run the youth and young adult shelter out of the Beacon Center. There's a long story here that I'd love to tell you all someday, but as we're short on time, I'll just say that we entered into the shelter in 2018 with the goal of building out the actual mental health and case management supportive services that folks would need who are staying at the shelter to hopefully look at ending their homeless situation. And again, to make a long story short, what we found was specifically during this last year in COVID, every time we started to build out the long-term planning, we kind of got pulled into addressing a lot of emergent needs. And we just couldn't do both, build out the big system that we wanted to support folks and address the day-to-day, moment-to-moment emergent needs. So we worked with the city of Tacoma starting in December to put out the shelter for RFP. And there's, again, a huge long story that I would love to tell you all someday. But the exciting news or announcement is that the city has engaged in contracts with Vallejo Vocation to offer transition for the shelter, yes. So they've actually, Mike, I see Mike is here, and Judy, who have been over at the shelter all week, or their staff have been learning and training and being on site with my staff, and they're going to continue to do that for the rest of the month. And then July 1st, Vallejo will take over operations, as far as I know, at least for 90 days, and the future of that I'll leave for the city to announce some other time. But in that, Comprehensive really did some soul searching, and almost like Denny said, or Alan actually said about Denny, was that we didn't want to be in the mode at Comp to chase any money or contracts. We wanted to ask ourselves, what's the most important need for our young adults, and how do we build that? And then we'll find the funding afterwards. And so we looked at the programs that exist, the larger programs like REACH and OASIS and Workforce Central, and just kept asking ourselves, Like, what's the barrier to our folks accessing these great resources? Like, where are the challenges? And what we determined is some of our folks just need to learn how to access those resources. Like that's the gap we want to fill. Is like kind of, we've been looking at a lot of age appropriate activities and functional skill building type things to really get them connected with the existing resources. So our plan at the Hype Center, which is helping young people excel, that's Hype Center, is to really look at the resources that exist and build all of the connective bridges that need to be built to these resources and not try to recreate anything. So effective Wednesday, next Wednesday, we will be opening at, I'll put it in the chat, but 815 South Pearl Street. That is a building that Comprehensive Life Resources owns. And I'm sitting in right now, and I'm gonna do a little walk around virtual tour inspired by one of the times that Colin did a activity on the streets and did a virtual tour. In my mind, this was going to look like a really cool Redfin type virtual tour. In reality, this is going to be the Blair Witch Project. So bear with me here. I'm going to move slowly, I have my laptop, and I'll kind of stop. And it's probably not going to make much sense, but I told Rob a few months ago that one of the cool resources that we have being on Zoom is that we can actually do stuff on location and show people things, and we should take advantage of this while we can, because someday we hope to be back in person and this kind of tool might go away. So I volunteered, I don't know, 2 months ago, but I couldn't get the stuff happening here at the building. COVID has made construction and internet hookups and getting water heaters and flooring and everything else needed very challenging. But effective yesterday, like we're good to go, except for we got some cleaning and a lot of things to move in here. So we're gonna delay our opening from Monday to Wednesday. And I'll put it in the chat. We'll open at 7 a.m. and we're gonna work with Vallejo starting Wednesday, but also in the future to be at Beacon at 7 a.m. and pick up as many folks as wants to come over to our day center. The main gist of what we're going to offer is from about 7 or 8 in the morning will be breakfast for sure. We have 5 private bathroom showers that people can access, and we have laundry. We have 1 laundry hookup, so we're going to just be able to offer 1 person at a time access to laundry. And then we have 2 different programs that are going to happen here at the same time, and it'll make sense when I walk through. I'm sitting in our classroom, which is upstairs in the building, because that's the only place that had a chair and a desk I could sit at to do this meeting. And I'll walk through this in a minute. But by the end of this weekend and early next week, this classroom will be totally set up to offer kind of our skill building classes. Again, low barrier, very patient. If people need to get up and leave, they can get up and leave. If they show up one day and never come back, and then they come back 6 months later, every curriculum will be self-contained so they can learn. We've been asking our clients what they want, and I've heard, access to getting a driver's license. So we're going to see if we can do some driver's license type stuff here. Access to GED courses. So again, we're going to see if we can do some things like that. And then we're going to look at all the other things that folks just either didn't learn through their tumultuous process of being a young adult into homelessness, or that they just missed. Like we've heard, for example, Oasis has done like the queer prom every year before COVID. So looking at things like that, pro-social activities and classes and therapeutic groups that can really meet our population's needs. I'm gonna do my best to walk and carry my laptop. If it ends up really like looking Blair Witchy or I keep glitching out, Rob, just mute me and move on. But I'm gonna do my best and see what happens here. So this is our upstairs area.
So the one thing that's happening, James, is we can't really hear you because the mic's pointed away from you.
Well, this will be fun. So I was thinking it was better on my computer because it was more stable, but I'm gonna go
James,
ahead
you can probably flip your camera. You
and
should be able to flip where your camera shows the outside, not the inside.
well, this is my computer, so it only has one camera, my laptop. But I'll just kind of walk through and then stop and turn my head. How's that sound?
There you go.
So we'll kind of do like a this. Can you hear me okay now? Or
Yes, definitely.
all right. So I'm sitting in a space that I'll show you in a minute. It looks like a little DMV kind of intake space. We got our space over here with another place where staff will be operating. And then over here, which is all empty, there's some tables that'll be up here soon. And this is the classroom space, and it will fit approximately what we say, 15 to 16 folks that can be in here at a time. And I'm walking away from an office space, but right here is where I was sitting in it's going to be like our resource hub with printer, fax, all that stuff. But this is all going to be open for our folks that want to join the classroom. There'll be activities here that will be, more structured than like a drop-in center kind of normally is, but also way more able for people to access than like some of the more structured programs. So I'm walking on someone doing a meeting right now, but this is our smaller group room. It has the ability. And this is our space that will have groups and activities as well. It can fit up to about 6 to 8 people. And I'm going to walk downstairs. There's more offices here. Like I said, I thought in my mind this would be really cool, and now I'm kind of wondering what it looks like for you guys, but we'll get through this together. So the program is divided in the upstairs and the downstairs, where the downstairs is going to be totally set up for people to just walk in. We will have expectations of engagement, but we're really excited. If you didn't know, Comp runs a residential youth program for inpatient. So it used to be our program. So it kind of has the facility. Anyway.
So James, we lost your audio again for some reason.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. It's weird how it's cutting out.
Yeah, I don't know. I knew it was going to be like this, so I was trying to make it all like man on the streets, live from downtown or whatever, and now it's just a debacle. But anyway, so you can get an idea. We have a kitchen here. We also have a nurses station. We actually used to be a facility with nursing. So Jan, I got a space for you right over there, and your crew to do some nursing. And then both of the halls in our building have 6 rooms. Inpatient facility. So we took one hall and we're going to have laptops in the hallway here that are accessible for folks. And then 3 of the rooms have been converted to different activity type centers, like little card tables in one. And then like one of them has a bed. So if a person needs to lay down, they have access to lay down. And another one has just couches and we'll have a little TV. But the goal for this space, of course, too, is that people sort of start to look at spaces to do their homework, do applications, do all that kind of stuff. And we have multiple bedrooms here. We have 14 that we're trying hard not to like totally convert from bedrooms, just in case we can go back to like some kind of transitional housing program or something in the near future. So I'm gonna do one more walk over here to show 2 more sites, and then I will try to give you guys back some of your time. We do have off of the main room, a room that again used to be an activities room, so a classroom. So we have a small
and we lost your audio again, James.
You have to point the computer right at you.
Well, that's fun. Can you hear me now again?
Yeah, we hear you now.
All right. I'm almost done. This has been as exciting and painful for all of us. So welcome. I thought it would be fun to see the location that we're going to work with. And again, it's at 815 South Pearl, right across from the YMCA. I think it's the Morgan Family Y over here. And we share a parking lot with a church. And then on the other side, which the church doesn't operate until Sunday. So that's helpful. As you know, opening a new program, the neighbors typically are the biggest barrier or challenge, I'll say. So one side is the freeway on-ramp to Highway 16. Other side is a church parking lot. And then across the street is the Morgan Family Y. And it's a 5-lane road to get to the Y. So we feel pretty good that we're in a low impact area. We've already met with our TPD community liaison officers. They're used to us having programming in this building that has a long history here of doing like youth inpatient programming. So they are at least used to having to respond here. But again, homeless youth, different population than inpatient. And then the final piece of the puzzle, which I won't walk out there, is we do have a pretty full-size courtyard. It has like 6 tables, and I'm not going to walk out because I'm confident I'll lose internet and volume. But if I walk around the outside, there's a big space there with a basketball hoop and some other things. The brick building right behind there is the church. And again, we've had a long history with them. So we're pretty excited. We're also looking for partners who offer specifically youth services or young adult services who want to be on site. We have a lot more space for people to offer their resources, their groups, their activities, to be here. Some of the challenges of Beacon is the location. And so inviting partners over to like hang out in a gym working with like, young adults who are both playing basketball and trying to talk about their medical history has been a little challenging. But here we have lots of offices, lots of nooks and crannies, lots of group space. So I guess that's it. I'm gonna walk upstairs and you guys can ask questions and hopefully I'll be able to answer them if you have anything.
Okay, great. I see that Al Ratcliffe has his hand up.
I'm familiar with that facility because I was on the design team. What happened to the residential treatment program that's occupied that place for years?
Good question. I forgot to mention that just a couple of months before COVID, we asked to double our license. We used to have 14 beds here and we made it to 28 beds, at which time Comprehensive moved the program from here to our Proctor location, 1201 South Proctor. For those that remember meeting at that building, can't meet there anymore as it's now 28-bed inpatient facility for children. And then all of our services for the youth that were there moved over to our Tacoma Avenue location.
So this is a significant expansion. Thank you all.
Yeah. Anything else?
Getting lots of thumbs up, and Jan Rumbeck asked if you want donations of supplies.
I'm guessing we will. There'll be definitely some things that we're going to look at having, some light clothing closet type stuff, but and then of course we'll have food and things like that. But I'll circle back by the end of next week to let you guys know kind of where we are and what we might need.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations, and thanks for experimenting with the walkthrough. And we are a little bit behind on our agenda, but I wanted to shift now over to advocacy items and Maureen Howard.
All right, well, good morning, everybody, and thank you. I'm going to do just run through a few things quickly and then introduce a colleague who's come to join us this morning. So with respect to Coalition's work, as you know, last week you approved a letter to the Department of Commerce on our comments on the new rapid capital housing acquisition program to make it more user-friendly within Pierce County. We received an immediate response from the managing director of the Housing Finance Unit and thanking us and saying he would reach out to us if they had any questions. The second thing is that with respect to the City of Tacoma's ordinance, the use of public property or no camping, 28756, that is on hold and I don't know what will be on the City Council agenda when it comes out tomorrow afternoon, but we were told by the sponsor, Councilmember Toms, or by the staff person that the council members and the mayor and deputy mayor had put it on hold until they had resolved a number of internal city issues with respect to that ordinance and confirmed that they are working off of our most recent draft, which is not the original one that was presented. The city is proceeding on the use of its ARPA money, its American Rescue Plan, state and local relief funds, and we'll have more information next week. The city also, City Council Member Walker requested that the Planning Commission review the use of containers, shipping containers for housing purposes. With respect to the port, one of the things that came out of the 509 sweep was the confusion over the handling of that notice of eviction by the port. And so that's just sitting out there right now in the multiple owners of that land. And my hope is that we can bring these sweeps policies into the conversations that are going forward, the shelter work group and the ad hoc steering committee, because this is a countywide issue with, I think there are 21 different cities and towns, plus the Puyallup tribe, plus the railroads now we know, and I'm sure there are others. Watch the listserv. I'm going to put out an invitation to small organizations that would be interested in capacity building around whether it's housing development, partnering with a larger organization, leasing housing, even sharing the use of a hotel, anything that might require a smaller organization to have the capacity to either go it alone or to partner with a larger organization. I'm looking for indications of interest. That's all. No commitments. I've asked the city and county if they would work on some sort of a capacity building program or technical assistance or something. I know we've got churches with land. I know we've got churches being approached by private developers. We want to hold our land, is my thinking. That is it for this morning. And now I want to welcome, we're going to hold questions on anything because I want to hold the time. John Stovall, who is the member organizer for the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance, has been able to join us this morning, and I want to welcome him. And so, John, now it's yours.
Okay, thanks, Maureen, and thank you all for allowing me to be here. It's good to see some familiar faces and names. Yeah, I'm here kind of representing the statewide perspective as part of the advocacy conversations. And one of the really big things on our mind and on probably all of your minds is the ending of the eviction moratorium at the end of this month, right? So we have been pushing to have that moratorium extended from its inception last March, several times throughout this last year, and have been successful every time. However, we're really concerned that this, we don't want this to be the end of it, because there are significant protections that the legislature passed in this legislative session, including the statewide right to counsel, which will allow tenants who are behind on rent and going through the eviction process to have access to a lawyer, a right to a lawyer to help them navigate and avoid the eviction process. We passed statewide just cause protections for tenants, which ensures that landlords have to have a legitimate reason in order to kick someone out of their home. And we passed hundreds of millions of dollars in emergency rental assistance to help pay folks' arrears off so that they can avoid eviction altogether. These are all really great things, but really only one of those bills is currently being enacted as of now, and by the end of June, that will still be the case. So, and that's the just cause tenant protections, which is great, but if you're behind on rent, that's a just cause to evict. So there's still going to be tons of people in Pierce County and in every county around the state who will be vulnerable to eviction if the moratorium is lifted on June 30th. We have talked to several counties around the state that are administering rental assistance. We talked to Valerie the other day and just sort of got a sense of like, do we have enough rental assistance? Do we need more time to administer that rental assistance so that people don't get evicted? And how much time would that be? And are we anticipating more people falling behind on rent? And the answer to all those questions is yes, like we need more time. So and then the other piece of it is the right to counsel program, which the statewide Office of Civil Legal Aid is implementing. They're having to hire at least 50 attorneys to be able to, field the need for people going through the eviction process. And they're not going to be able to do that. They've told us, and they've told the governor's office that it will be at the earliest October, when most counties have the right to counsel stood up, and then likely at the very end of the year before the whole state is really seeing the right to counsel being implemented. So that tells us we need to extend the moratorium at least through October, but really we don't want to say a date, because every time we've set a specific date, it's had to be extended again. So our ask to the governor is to extend the moratorium until counties can show that they have significant and sufficient rental assistance flowing into people's hands, they have the right to counsel fully implemented, and they have the mediation program fully implemented. And so it should be a county by county situation where, similar to the way we do phasing with COVID-19, right? Like if your county is ready to go with the permanent tenant protections that we passed, then it's up for consideration for the moratorium to be lifted in your area. If not, it's too soon. So we have been pushing for the last few weeks to really let the governor know that this is the expectation. This is the only thing that's really going to work. So we submitted a sign-on letter, a petition to Governor Inslee last week with over 1,000 signatures, with 150 organizations that signed on. In addition, we've asked folks to send emails to Governor Inslee, and over 500 people sent emails. This week and the beginning of next week is really kind of a critical time to send a strong message to Governor Inslee about extending the moratorium. So what we're asking folks to do is make phone calls. Call him, leave a message, flood his inbox, send a clear and consistent message to him using your voice. And also sending emails are great too right now, but I think like in the age where everything is virtual and people are getting a lot of emails and emails can get lost, voicemails and phone calls really do stand out a little bit more. So I was originally going to ask folks to make calls right now, but I don't think we have time on the agenda, unfortunately. So I'm going to put the link in the chat here. What you can do is click on this link to a Google Doc. It'll take you to just a very simple page with the phone number to call, a sample script that's pretty much already been spelled out, but you can insert like one sentence on why, for you personally, for folks you work with, for folks in your community, your friends and family, like why is it so essential that the moratorium be extended? So please take a couple minutes today. I'm asking you all, please just take a couple minutes, write down that one sentence on why it is important for us to extend the moratorium, and then click the link and just make a phone call and include that sentence in there. If we can get 65 people who are on this call right now to leave a message with Governor Inslee, that will send a strong message. So thank you all so much. That's all I had to say, but any questions?
I'm not seeing any hands raised at the moment. Give it a moment here.
To answer Teresa's question, yes, we actually email all 10,000 landlords weekly and let them know, hang tight. If your tenant leaves for any reason, whether it's voluntary or eviction, you are no longer eligible for these funds. We have approximately $163 million to spend. So just give us a moment to process and we will get back to you. And that email goes out every week. Sometimes they call and they get a little hostile, nothing I can't handle, but sometimes they call and say, thank you, I appreciate that, I'll take a breath. And I'm like, great. And then sometimes it's an emergent situation like the landlord I had yesterday who's 80. This is her source of income. We already have her paid. So there's things that we're doing, processing quickly, as well as working very closely with the Dispute Resolution Center and Tacoma Pro Bono daily. So yeah, we are doing that as well as educating landlords and tenants who don't know that their lease goes month to month. So we're doing a lot of correspondence with like, stay in your house. Don't leave. I don't care that your lease is up. Stay in your house. So hopefully we'll prevent as much homelessness as we can, but we are doing that on a consistent basis.
You are amazing.
We sent those emails out to Snohomish King and Spokane too, because they were asking what we were doing. So we're encouraging them to do the same.
Fantastic. Maureen, I see your hand up.
No, I wanted to really acknowledge Valerie for making the program work. And most of us don't know all of the ins and outs and how adaptable she's been and how she's responded to the breadth of what the law allows. And that's really important in the work. And I want to thank John for coming, and you are always welcome. And John, one of the things we're going to do later this morning is we're actually going to invite folks in this meeting to volunteer to be our liaison to different organizations. And one of them is the Alliance. So we're looking for, yeah. Anyway, thanks.
Can I make one more just announcement real quick?
Sure.
So, related to making phone calls, we're actually organizing phone banking sessions, meaning we are going to be calling other advocates around the state, asking more folks to contact Governor Inslee. So we have a session today and we're going to do one on Monday. So if anybody is interested in kind of flexing that statewide advocacy muscle and connecting with other folks about the importance of contacting Governor Inslee, please just put it in the chat. You can say your name and maybe put your email address there. You can do it publicly or privately to me. Either way is fine. We would love to have you. Our session today is starting like right now until 2 p.m. So it doesn't mean you have to be there for 4 hours. You can come in for 30 minutes and make some phone calls and get on with your day. But any time that you can join us would be much appreciated.
Thank you, John. And thanks for your leadership on this really important issue that's impacting the whole state. All right, so let's shift over to our regular weekly government updates. Do we have anybody on the call with updates from the city of Tacoma? I didn't see Clarissa or Tegan on the call, so all right, let's move on to talk to Valerie and see what's going on with Pierce County.
Good morning. Okay, so I have a post-it note. So the Voices That Matter program closes today, and what that is a notice of funding availability to stipend folks with lived expertise to participate in coalitions, continuum of cares, youth action boards, all of the above. So that NOFA is out, closes today. Super simple questions, very, very easy budget. So if you're interested in supporting lived experts, please apply. We will be holding that funding decision here very soon. Also, a heads up that another NOFA is coming out. It's been a very busy week, guys. Another NOFA is coming out today, and it is the American Rescue Plan funds for $1.7 million. It is inclement weather. It is shelter. It is outreach. It is hygiene sanitation. It is encampment cleanup. It is very, very vague. I believe it is a whopping 6 questions and a budget. So that will be coming out today as well, and funding starts July 1. So and it will go through March 31st, 2022, because we wanted to do the full inclement weather season of next year. So please look at that one. It is a very, very fast turnaround because we want to get your contract in place by July 1st. So we just need a little bit of wiggle room on that. Super easy questions. So both of those are out. You know, I try to make things as simple as possible. Next up is the YHCP, which is the Youth Homelessness Demonstration Program. It's that grant we've been writing every single year since I came to the county. And one year we were 1 point away. HUD has finally released it because what better timing than right now with chaos of everything else. And so we are actively participating in writing that as we speak. It's due July 27th. And when we are awarded that one, it will bring anywhere from $3 to $5 million to the community for youth and young adult homelessness. And those funds roll into the continuum of care fund, so we don't lose them at the end of the demonstration period. I had an amazing meeting at 6 o'clock last night with the Youth Action Board, and we have just some amazing young folks who have now applied to be on the continuum of care, and who will be writing majority of that grant. So that's all fantastic news. And I am very honored. I think that's going to be a huge turnaround for the community as a whole. And then, of course, as you heard, the shelter update. So, and then the last thing with rental assistance, we had ERAP dollars last year. It did roll into June of this year. We are 95% spent down on that. So we will turn in 100% spent, which is just at $15 million. For our other 2 fund sources, we have already spent $3.5 million in our Department of Treasury funds, and we have spent $4.9 million in our TRAP funds, which is Department of I keep saying transportation, but that's not it. Department of Treasury. So those projects are still rolling strong. We are in the final stages of updating the live portal. So you will be able to see the number of applicants, how many people have been referred, where those folks live, because we want to give you a hotspot, all the demographics for everybody who has been served of everything that has been asked, and then the dollar amounts of rent, utilities, and other housing costs, plus our budget left over. So all that will be available to you live every single week. I do have a running chart, so if you ever just want to see it, email me, I can send it to you. We do track all of those demographic informations on a weekly basis as well. And then we received our American Rescue Plan funds round 1. We have awarded that $9 million to Helping Hand House, so they're going to start pumping those out here very soon. And then we are ready and willing whenever we received a American Rescue Plan fund round 2. and the state American Rescue Plan Round 2. See where it gets all confusing? Everybody's got the same name. So we're ready for those when they come, and we will just keep processing as fast as possible. So those are the county updates, which is why I'm losing a little bit of hair. My son graduated boot camp last week, and we found out this week my other son's graduating high school. So it has been an insane week. But we're here, and grants are moving. So
Thank you, Valerie. So do folks have questions for Valerie? All right, looks like we're going to let you off the hook. All right, and our next government updates would be from the Tacoma-Pierce County Health Department. I'm not sure if anybody from the health department was able to join us this morning. I'll be quiet for a moment and just see if anybody has anything to add. If not, I will share what Rihanna shared with me in email. All right, so let me flip over to my email. So Rihanna just urged that we all be aware of the event she sent the email out about on June 15th in Spanaway, where they're hosting a vaccine event. It's a walk-up event happening at the same time and location as the Nourish Pierce County Food Bank in that area. Rihanna will be at the event handing out $5 gift cards to people who are receiving their second dose or the single dose of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And our own Kevin Clacken-Coley will be there with hygiene kits and portable phone chargers to give out. So I don't know, Kevin, if you had anything that you wanted to add.
Nothing else. Thanks for the shout out.
Awesome. Great. All right, so I'm flipping back over to my agenda, and we've had to shuffle things a little bit. So I'm going to hand off to Mike Boister to talk about the first meeting of the shelter work group that's part of Pierce County's homelessness efforts. Mike?
Yeah, thanks, Rob. It was they kept it right on time. I really liked the time management that they call her Director Moss. She's really good. I've met her some time ago here in Puyallup. But as far as our meeting, it was more of an organizational type meeting, going through a lot of the processes and then reviewing the ad hoc report. And if you haven't read that, it's not an exciting read, but it would be something to go through because it is interesting how they came to where we're at today. And so what we did go over was the shelter plan, okay? And I'll give you some of that right now. One of the shelter plan is separate the effort from larger comprehensive plan, clearly define scope of the emergency shelter. I think most of our conversation yesterday was defining scope. And then selecting partners or seek partners and support. Stay focused. It was interesting because I've been on a number of committees and teams, and I call it rabbit trails that we take. We did pretty good on that yesterday. Like I told Rob, I'm going to kind of keep it short. And our plan, our shelter plan, this is what is out there and this is what we're marching to. And I said this in the meeting yesterday, it's like drinking from a stinking fire hose, and it's not 1.5 inches, it's a 2.5 line. And try to get this done by November 1st. This is America, we can do it. So the shelter plan, basically June, we were to convene work group and clarify the scope and our goals, and then begin to conduct focus groups. July is to present a draft plan and seek community input. August, finalize shelter plan, identify funding, seek support from jurisdictions. And then September, October is implement, and November, ensure all contracts, resources are in place. Like we talked, it's aggressive, but We have a goal, and that is our marching orders. We're going to be meeting every 2 weeks. And I think Maureen sent out the link to the meetings, and everybody's welcome. This last meeting was a little confusing on basically trying to organize the meeting as far as who could speak and who couldn't speak. So that will be fixed in 2 weeks. And so I did that quicker than 5 minutes, Rob.
Fantastic. Yeah, anybody have any questions? I can say that I know Maureen and I participated as guests for most of the conversation. Garrett was on the call, James was on the call, and a number of folks who aren't always able to attend the coalition meetings were on the call as well. Maureen, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was just going to say that people should, work with Mike and, send him questions, suggestions, that sort of stuff. And we'll figure out how to keep the loops all open and working, because it isn't just the shelter work group isn't just doing a plan by November 1st. It's implementing it as well. This is the everybody off the streets. Yep. So I don't know if fire hoses come bigger at 2.5, but
no, that's it.
But yeah, so
yeah, there's a 3-inch pipeline. Yeah, we can do 3-inch.
So that's where they are. So the only thing I was going to add is, so today the steering committee meets, and I'm your representative on that. And so we're doing the comprehensive plan. We have a longer timeline. One of my interests is to make sure that housing is like equal to shelter in this as we go forward, so that people end up with a permanent place to live, an appropriate housing intervention, if we're going to use that built for zero model. So please reach out in whatever way. And there are other people who, are part of the coalition who are on that comprehensive plan steering committee as well. These are all public meetings, and we'll meet once a month, is my understanding, the steering committee. And I don't know if we meet the same time. And Mike, are you going to meet at the same time every 2 weeks?
That might be the goal, because that's a number of people said it was a good time to meet.
Okay.
So she's going to send one out. What is it called? Google or Doodle? Yeah, whatever the thing is. And set up the date.
Okay. Anyway, Mike, thanks for taking this on.
And Mike, real quick, I see there's a question in the chat. If you could put your email address and the program that you work with.
Yep, do it right
be helpful. Now. Awesome. And Colin, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you for the update, Mike, and Maureen also. I guess my question is just, obviously, as Maureen was just talking about that November 1 date, and if the goal is to, have the streets cleared by that November 1 date, I'm kind of going through the timeline that you guys have with implementation that seems with this specific plan in what sounded like September, October, something like that. And I'm just curious if there's conversation about how, obviously we're going to need to do something before then with some interventions and some strategies. So I'm just curious if there's been conversation with how other strategies may roll into this plan that are going to help that November 1 date, but they might not fall under the umbrella of some of the stuff that the county maybe will be funding through this process. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep. I was making notes. Thank you.
I guess, is that conversation happening? I guess is the question. I'm just curious.
Right now it hasn't, because we just put things together. So that's why I'm making notes. Maureen sent me a couple. Maureen's got her hand up there as well.
Yeah, Maureen. You're muted, Maureen.
Thank you. Colin, thanks for that question. And I think a couple of things. One is part of the process is continual community engagement. And this is none of this work is intended to focus on Pierce County funding. This isn't intended to be county-wide. And so anybody who's got something, if you're not contacted like right away, come forward, please. Okay, we're not going to try. I don't think there's any intent to change anybody's existing plans or anything like that in terms of work they might be working on, but rather that we know what's out there so that we end up with one comprehensive plan and strategy. And the other thing that I think is different this time from before, that the county is staffing up to do this. So they're literally adding positions. They're moving some folks around internally. They're doing some contract work.
Thank
And
you,
there will be a
Maureen.
website also. Just like there was a website for the ad hoc committee, the county council ran that website. Pierce County Human Services is going to run the new one. And so that website should be up and running, I hope, within the week. So.
Thank you. And Garrett, was there anything you wanted to add?
Sure. So it looks like I am going to be an employee of the county, or at least contracting with them to help do project management temporarily at the beginning and maybe slightly longer term, supporting both this effort with the shelter group and with the larger comprehensive plan. So Mike remains the best tool for you to feed information from the coalition side, but I will also be somebody that should be able to take in what you have to say as well. So I'm looking forward to it. It might make things muddy between what I do with the coalition and this, and we'll see how things actually break out with the coalition. I've had other conversations about doing contracting that haven't gone anywhere. So I'll be a true believer when I see the contract, but I'm excited about it. I care about this work, obviously, and I think that that working in that capacity, I think, can really advance the goals of the coalition. So yay for me being able to get my hands fully into the project. I'm excited.
Thank you, Garrett. All right, so if others have questions or suggestions to drop in the chat, this would be a great opportunity to use that, just as it is every Friday. I am going to shift gears to the next item on our agenda, and that is an update from Teresa on homelessness messaging resources.
Hi, this is going to be a very quick update, but I do want you to, I just threw the link in the chat for the file, the Google file, and I just want to take you there for a minute if I can share my screen.
Yeah, let me give you that ability. And you should have that now.
Yes, I do. So if you click on that link, you're going to get to this folder here, the SS4A, that's Safe Sites for All. And if you open it up, you'll find these great images that from Lori Davenport that she loaded in here. And I want to show you one. A little bit pokey there. Meanwhile, there are some messages to get out. One of the messages we're trying to counter is the idea that there are lots of places for people to stay and people are refusing it. So at every opportunity, there are these things. Oh, this is not the one I was trying to bring up, but this is another cool one. This one is her most recent one. And if you come in here and open this up, you can put it on an 8.5 by 11 sheet. Lori is looking at making some stickers of this. The idea is safe shelter for all, so it can include all of these things. And please, please make use of these creative works. I'm so impressed with Lori that she can do these things. I'm going to stop sharing, but go and poke around. We're going to keep adding resources. If you have some things to send to me that I can add in there so that other people can use them, please do. But the idea is we can all be part of this campaign by taking the opportunity to say to people, you know, what do you mean people are refusing shelter? If you have a dog or you have a partner or you're not able to stay in a congregate setting, are you really refusing shelter? So please help us get that word out in conversations, and please help us get some images out there that help to draw attention to the fact that we can end street homelessness this winter. We can do it.
Thank you, Teresa, and thanks to Lori for all this work. I know she couldn't be here this morning. Kevin and then Carolyn.
Yeah, Teresa, I was just wondering, probably if I open up the file, I can tell, is that a QR code down in the bottom? Was that a QR code in the bottom?
It is.
Of that image? Okay. And where does that take you to?
Are we tech savvy or what? Yeah, well, it takes you to a place that isn't quite as tech savvy yet, but it's getting there. So we do have a little, Garrett put together a little space for us on the website. That's where it'll take you.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, Carolyn?
Good morning. Teresa, are there some other messages? I mean, these are nice. It's all about, you know, getting shelter, but there's also a lot of public misperception about those that are on how, you know, half are families, you know, over 5,000 students. Is there any way to capture the fact that these are community members and we want them to stay in their communities where their support systems are?
This is absolutely, community is one of the messages that we want to promote, that there are communities of all kinds. And if you have something to add to that, please come on by. If you go to the coalition website, you'll see our little campaign group meeting, and anyone is welcome. You can come one time and tell us what you really think the message should be, and help us to work that out. Anybody is welcome.
Thank you, Carolyn, and thank you, Teresa. Any other questions? Teresa, what time is that meeting again?
I was afraid you were going to ask me that, because I have to tell you that this week we have a special meeting at 3 o'clock, but we will still be meeting at 2:30. It's 2:30 on Wednesdays.
And the link is on the pchomeless.org website.
Yes. So yeah, any Wednesday, come on by.
Perfect. Thank you, Teresa. Any additional questions or input, do feel free to drop those in the chat. And I'm going to shift now over to Rosemary with an invitation for folks who are attending today.
Good morning, and thank you, Rob. Denny's comments at the beginning and Garrett's comments about complications of working with the county and the coalition lead me to say we need more discussion about how the coalition can be the kind of organization that meets our changing activities. Over the years, we've done very many different things, and from a supportive network to now a very strong policy advocacy approach as part of our work. And we need to have the structures that support that and that are inclusive structures. So this is an invitation to a small group. We've met a few times. We shared some discussion in the past couple of months about what is the value of the coalition and what do people not want to lose in any changes or more formal structures we might develop. But we'd like to invite people who are interested, especially in ensuring that the coalition has a focus on racial equity and other equity issues in our structures. So we're meeting this Wednesday. I'm going to put the information in the chat and the Zoom link, but if others are interested and that's not a good time, just contact me. I'll have my information there too, and we'll try to structure a time that works for people the best we can in the future. But if you have ideas you want us to deal with this, you can also contact me ahead of our meeting this coming Wednesday. So that's the invitation, and I hope it went in there now. Let's just see if it did.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's come through on the chat yet, but
all right.
But I'll let you do that as we move on. There you go.
Oh, I got it twice, so it came through twice. So
that gives
you
it emphasis.
Yes.
All right, thanks, Rosemary. And yeah, we really want to hear from different voices in our community, people with lived experience, and those that we want to ensure that the coalition is a welcoming place for everybody in the community. And so we have heard that some folks have felt like they maybe weren't as welcome as we would like. And so please let us know if you have ideas about how we can become more welcoming, more honor all the voices that we hear, and that we can really pay attention to the racial equity work that needs to be done. So with that, let's shift over to Colin for an update from the Safe Sites for All group.
Hello. Yeah, so updates from the Safe Sites for All group. Not a whole lot of updates this week. If Cynthia is on from TUUC, she may be able to give an update. We're getting really close with to reopening that site. We are also getting really close to taking the next step at with the Rise Center to have a small 4-vehicle site at their site. There's some work that's going on there right now. There should be a portable toilet delivered. We still have to do the community outreach, so I'm working with Gerald on that. Hopefully we'll get a letter out next week, and hopefully have a Zoom meeting next week also, and then get that place open. So yeah, TUUC, basically what has been going on there is their staff is just over the top. They have been staying the night amongst various TUUC leaders and just members, staying the night at the safe parking site just to really get an idea of what the foot traffic, what the site looks like, what some of the challenges are at the sites. Another example of challenges with the site would be they had a really cool little hand washing station that we were trying out there. It was so cool that somebody decided to take it. So we don't have that hand washing station anymore. Luckily, Paula Anderson, as we're closing down our east side site, we're able to transition some of the portable toilets getting transitioned over to another site, over to the Rise site, and the hand washing station. Hopefully we're going to transition over to C site. So, and what I'm going to say about that hand washing station is good luck moving it because it weighs a ton. So I don't think we have to worry about that one leaving, but we are really, really close. I'm kind of just really waiting to get the okay from TUUC on referrals, and then we will be moving forward from there. I would also say that Heather Moss and Valerie reached out from the county just to kind of find out some more information about the safe parking program, how it's been going. So that's exciting that there is some interest from the county on that. And I'm hoping to meet with Valerie. Valerie had sent me some questions that I've been procrastinating on responding to. So I'm going to be responding to those questions today and over the weekend, and then hopefully meeting with her next week. And I'm feeling like for the safe parking, we have a couple other churches that are still trying to come on board and interested. And I think where we're at, kind of some of the lessons learned in year one is 3 sites is pretty good. You know, I think that 3 sites right now seems to be working really well as we close one and transition to this other one. So I'm feeling really good about 3 sites. I'm feeling really excited also, I would say, just from a Safe Sites for All view of the work that Rise is interested in doing on Hilltop and some of the potential collaborations with parcel and property owners in the Hilltop area that Gerald has connected with and some of his staff. So I think there's a lot of potential for that area outside of just vehicle parking. So hopefully more to come on that. I don't know if Jeffrey or, like I said, if anybody from TUUC is on the call, feel free to hop in.
Yeah, and I don't see anybody from TUC on the call at the moment. Jeffrey or Jan, anything to add?
We did invite Jason Gauthier from Habitat for Humanity to talk about being a neighbor at the South 69th and Proctor site. He actually, I would like to hear Colin or Teresa or Jeff's impression of how that went.
I can talk. Teresa, I'll talk first and just, you know, and I'll just be completely transparent. And it was, I tell you what, we got a whole lot more information about what's going on in the city of Tacoma from a Habitat for Humanity worker than we have in months from the city of Tacoma. So that was nice. He definitely pulled back the curtain and let us know what was going on at the 69th site. And it seemed like it's been very clear what the plan is for the 69th and Proctor site, which is to shut down the McKinley site and transition all of those people over there and potentially increase the site by 20-ish tiny houses or micro units. So I guess what's important for this group to know, I think we had intentions of this would be, you know, as we talk about getting towards that goal of November 1st, what we know is we need an increase in the stock of every form of shelter, housing, safe parking that we have. And I think the hope was that this was going to be a real big net increase for us. And that really isn't going to be the case. This is going to be just really closing down one site and opening up another, which I think for any of us who saw the THA letters, it's disappointing because Michael clearly made it stated in the letter that there's avenues to go if you want to try to expand this site for another year through 2022. So obviously the city didn't feel that that was necessary and they chose to transition, and I think that's what Habitat feels good with the micro shelters, the tiny units, but it doesn't seem like there's really going to be any type of low barrier shelter, which I think that's probably not the best site for, but I think the idea of kind of having potentially hybrid, if it's safe parking, if it's maybe a small area for people camping, it doesn't sound like any of that's going to happen. So, I mean, it is great that they're expanding, but I also think just from a lot of us who've done any work around tiny house villages, and if you look around at best practices, 70 to 80 tiny house village sites with 70, 80 units, you don't see those because that's not a best, you know, I wouldn't say it's not a best practice, but I think keeping the numbers smaller. If you look around at Lehigh, their numbers are usually quite smaller than that. So I'm guessing this will probably be Lehigh's biggest tiny house village that they're managing now. So, so we will see what happens with it, but that's kind of what I got out of it. I think we grilled, it was a Jason pretty hard from Habitat. And I really think that I applaud him for taking our questions and answering them. And I think that he did a great job. So Teresa, did I miss anything?
Just this, it's not over till it's over. We as a coalition could make it really clear that we oppose closing down any of our current shelters, that we only want additional shelters. If we don't do that, we are just going to keep moving the lawn chairs or the deck chairs or whatever. So I believe this should be our message to the city. Do not close down any of our current shelters options. We are in an emergency. It is not all about the 24-month agreement. We have other agreements that we need to honor as well, like that we are going to make safe sites for all. So I oppose the idea of moving the tiny homes. I think most of us do. It's just, it's an expensive way to keep shifting things when what we really need are more shelters. So that's the message that I hope we can take forward.
I agree with Teresa and Colin. I was disappointed with the city's response. We're supposed to be trying to make a net gain, a reasonable net gain, and there is no reasonable net gain here. We need every site we can find. As a matter of fact, I would even suggest that we take the 705 and 34th and Pacific and make them low barrier shelters or low barrier campgrounds. We've got to do something that is going to help these people. And let's not forget, these are people.
And the last thing that I would say is it's that as we look at that net gain or what that is, we're also clearing a large camp with however many people in it in the 509. So really what we're saying one thing, and when I say we're, I don't know who I'm pointing that at, but one thing is being said about let's get towards this date, and then our actions on the other side are completely counter to that, because what we're doing by clearing that site is obviously those are people that are going to end up on the streets, right? As we push them out of the areas that are in the woods, that are off of the streets. And I guess my question, and maybe we need to try to get somebody from Washington State Department of Transportation here so we could get a straight answer, because there's some agreement with WSDOT and the city of Tacoma, and maybe if there's a city of Tacoma staff, they can kind of update us on that. But anybody who's been down Puyallup Avenue and seen 705 parking lots on the east and the west side, or the north and the south side, they're filling up with tents, they're filling up with vehicles, RVs. And I guess the question is that they have their hygiene center there. Is that a safe place for people to go? Because if it is, then we need to start directing people there. And if it's not, then what's the plan for that, right? I think that we're all left in this kind of no man's land from an outreach point of what do we tell people? And I think we need some direction from the city. If they're showing us that that's a safe site. So if that's a safe site, then let's start using that as a safe site.
Thank you, Colin. So if folks have other thoughts on this, please do drop them in the chat. I think we're going to move on in the agenda. The next item that we have queued up is Garrett wanted to talk about a number of appointments. If he was ready to do that today, or if not.
I am, but we can boot that if we want to push more on the agenda, or.
Yeah, well, so essentially what we have left on today's agenda is some space for good of the order announcements. And then I've added a new standing section at the end of the meeting to kind of reflect on what we've heard in today's meeting and just have some general discussion. Maureen, I see your hand up.
So, and I'm with Garrett. We can move that item, I think, to another week, but I just wanted to frame it for people to think about. What we're trying to do is expand people's opportunities to engage in advocacy. And these are some really easy ways to serve as a liaison between the coalition and a number of state or national groups that I have been holding that relationship for the coalition, basically. And so there's room easily for a dozen people and more. So we can think about this, a little bit more, answer questions that people might have. In some cases, it's really simple. It's like committing to following one national call a week. So you can pick the topic that you're most interested in and that fits your schedule. And even if you can't make the call, most of these are recorded. So I just think if we just give it a little time, talk with, your colleagues, we want to diversify our engagement, and we've got a commitment to diversifying beyond people who look like me. So this is a great free opportunity. Might cost an hour a week and maybe an hour to prepare or process or share. So it can be really focused, really limited. You can look for things that fit the work you're already doing or your agency is doing. So
one thing that might be good is if we could send a list of those opportunities to the mailing list with maybe a little bit of context of what is involved with each of them. That might give folks a bit of time to ponder. And Garrett, sorry I interrupted you.
No, that's all right. No, I'll definitely do that, Rob. And I was going to say, this can be an opportunity for an agency to sort of kill two birds with one stone. If your agency would benefit from having somebody on those calls, which the state one, absolutely, national one, probably, you can have a staff member develop their professional skills, keep your organization informed, and also keep the general community and the coalition and, you know, via the coalition informed about what's going on. So again, think about that opportunity for your agency as well as for the coalition.
Thank you, Garrett. Let's move on to things for the good of the order. I see Julian with his hand up promptly, as I would have expected. Julian?
Yes, hi there. Thank you. This is Julian Wheeler. Just wanted to direct attention to the chat box. I just dropped information. Our next regular session meeting of the Pierce County Accessible Communities Advisory Committee is Tuesday, July 13th at 9 on Zoom. And for the foreseeable future, I anticipate that we will keep our meetings on Zoom, as indeed I certainly have benefited from the coalition meetings being on Zoom. So anyway, thank you very much. We're looking for new members and new ideas. And we actually are eagerly awaiting the response of the Accessible Communities Subcommittee of the Governor's Committee on their decision for the accessibility project submitted through us by Garrett. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Julian. Carolyn?
Thank you, Rob. I just want you to know, well, first of all, I read the action plan. Thank you for sharing that today. It was really good. At least I felt it had a lot of things I was looking for in it. Other than emphasis on the fact that in order to implement such an ambitious plan, we're going to need sustainable funding. And I know there's a little bit of information in there that they're going to look at funding, but I'm a little afraid that they're going to rely on this art money that's been coming out. Somebody's clicking on their computer. Looking at art money that's coming out rather than how can we utilize the tools that we have available. As you know, a couple of us are working on revenue for housing. We're trying to get the county to pass the 1/10 of 1% tax. So I dropped my email in the chat earlier, and we're starting to do some community engagement out on the east side where Dave Morrell and Hans Zeiger's districts are, because we believe that we have 4 votes. We need 5 to get that tax approved. And it'd be a beautiful thing if we could time the funding approval with the presentation of this plan. Like, oh, you know, as a county rep, they could say, here's this very ambitious plan and we're going to need funding, and here's some funding that is at our fingertips, approved by the state for us to use. So we're doing research meetings. In fact, we're going to be talking with Maureen on Monday. If anybody wants to get involved in that, that'd be great. But if you want to just do a little thing that would really help, that would be to make comments in front of the county council. We'd like to do that every week if possible. We need some new faces. We've even got bullet points. All you have to do is read the ones that mean something to you. So please reach out and just know that we really need to keep pressure on them to find a sustainable funding stream that they can leverage against. John Hines is my representative, and you know the city of Tacoma approved this tax, and in his newsletter he said the city is leveraging $16 on every dollar that they're putting in. So do the math. I mean, if the county did this, you could actually build all the sustainable housing that you need. And that's a pretty big deal. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. And if you do want to have some additional folks at your meetings, go ahead and drop the information about the meeting in the chat as well. All right, anybody else with items for the good of the order that you think the group would benefit from hearing? Al?
I just want to let the group know that I have decided to retire. and that my retirement date will be June 30. It's been a pleasure being with all of you. Carry on.
Al, I think we'll believe it when we see it. Thank you.
How does one retire from unpaid, ongoing contributions to the whole community? I haven't quite figured that out yet, Hal.
One changes what one does.
Retire is just a word. I'm just kidding.
All right, anybody else with items for the good of the order before we move to our next item? All right, so the last item that I wanted to add to our agenda going on is just a opportunity to hear from anybody who would like to share about how they've felt during today's meeting, how it went, what worked, what didn't, and what should we be doing differently next week. So just open the floor.
Let's see.
Thank you for your comment in the chat, Chongli. Rosemary?
I'd just like to say I was really appreciative of James' presentation of helping us see what's happening as programs are developing and changing. And I just recommend that we ensure we hear from different groups on a regular basis in that kind of way. We used to do that a lot more when we met in person. And I'd encourage us to make sure that we see what everybody's doing to try to work on the same goal.
Thank you, Rosemary. Colin?
Yeah, I guess kind of to your question that you just asked, I think one of the challenges is always getting people to share their voice. And I'm just curious if there's strategies that anybody has that they could drop in the chat or anything. And I think Rosemary maybe touched on some of it, but it's just that outreach engagement to some of the underserved populations that don't make it to the meeting. And I know at some point I struggle with kind of figuring, it's a tough nut to crack, and I think it's definitely a nut that can be cracked, but I'm just curious. Obviously, we're missing something, and I'm just curious. And also to whoever has been talking, I know there's the group where some of these recommendations or whatever are coming down from, and I'm wondering if there's been any strategies. I know people in that group have been involved in other coalitions like the King County one, and I'm wondering if this is a common theme, that some groups are very challenging to get engaged, or if they've been more successful in places like King County, and if so, what strategies did they use and what has worked? Because I'm hoping that that's some of what we're getting out of some of those meetings.
Thank you, Colin. I'm checking the chat here. And I do recognize these meetings are definitely different when we are all little boxes on a screen rather than real flesh and blood human beings sitting around a table and able to talk to each other, especially at the ends of the meetings. I know these last 15, 16 months have been challenging, and it's awfully easy to forget that human connection. So I appreciate the fact that we still have 60 to 80 people a week who show up to these meetings. I think Garrett said last week's meeting we had 90 some individuals here for at least a portion of the meeting. But our hope is that we can create a safe space for everybody to feel like they can speak up, and that the conversation is not just dominated by some of us. So, do others have reflections that they'd like to share? Well, I'm going to also drop my email in the chat. If people do have reflections that they'd prefer to share individually rather than in the full group. I do appreciate folks who've offered comments in the chat as well. I know it's not always comfortable to speak on camera. So, so thank you. And hopefully we can have some robust conversations during this portion of the meeting going forward. We've got about 5 minutes left on our agenda today. If anybody has any last minute items that they want to bring up, if not, I want to wish everybody a happy Friday, a safe weekend, and hope that you'll be back next Friday.